Oh yes, I actually have a topic to talk about today, and it's going to be a good one. It actually follows up on a previous post on levelcap.com talking about valuation. Now, the first post actually came from another post, which was talking about how some people were considering asking for refunds on their purchase of Firewatch, because Firewatch apparently is a very short game, and it is priced at $20. People were completing this game within the window that Steam allows you to request a refund. So people were finishing it, and then they were saying, hey, I'm still within the refund window, why don't I just get my $20 back? So the article that I had read basically took the position that no, jackass, you played the game, you enjoyed it. It's not a service, it is a product. You bought the product and you used it to completion. And if you ask for a refund, you're exploiting the system. More or less. I mean, that was kind of the stick end of the argument, but essentially it tried to frame it in terms of enjoyment. You know, did you enjoy the product? Did you get, essentially, did you get your money's worth out of this product? And that's as I was writing my post in which I was explaining why I agree with that. There was something though that kind of stuck in my mind that I could not articulate. And it wasn't until this morning when I was reading a post on Digital Initiative that talked about the value of games specifically, where it kind of clicked. Now, there apparently was another developer who was kind of in the same boat as the Firewatch developers, where people were saying, the price is too high or whatever. And then the developers essentially came to them on the Steam group and posted a breakdown of where all the money went and, other things that $20 could buy or other things that, $20 couldn't even buy. And they had such, silly, nonsensical things like, you can't even buy a toilet plunger for $20. Of course, everybody picked up on the fact that you couldn't even buy a Nickelback poster for $20, meaning, of course, that $20 for this piece of entertainment is a bargain. So the developers took to the forums and they tried to convince people that, hey, look, $20 is not asking a lot, for something you enjoy, insinuating in the process that nobody really enjoys Nickelback posters. What everybody's talking around in this case is how the video game industry has not trained the consumer base to see the value in the products that the games industry creates. And they have done this by providing an absolute disaster area of pricing schemes. So, let's start off by talking about movies. Movies, we know, are generally between an hour and a half and 2 hours in length. That is pretty much universal. Sometimes we'll get like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie, but generally, movies are an hour and a half to 2 hours in length. We go to a movie theater to see a movie. We're paying regionally adjusted prices. So the prices in your area may be different from the prices in someone else's area. Around here, we're paying about $10, I guess, per ticket. When I was a kid, of course, I went to see, the original Star Wars probably about 17 times because it was $1.50 a ticket. So over the course of time, the price of a movie ticket has gone up. And, inflation and all that business. But we are trained to know that for an hour and a half movie or a 2-hour movie that $10 or $12 or what have you is a fair price. Now, old guard, of course, would probably argue that they remember, like me, when it was cheaper. And we may bemoan the fact that, it used to be cheaper and it's not cheaper anymore, but we still go to the movies and we don't complain about the ticket. We know how much they're going to charge us, and we know exactly how much entertainment we're going to get, right? Same thing kind of like with, music. You can buy a song for, 99 cents or $1.99. You can buy a whole album for about 15 bucks. Essentially, we're talking about understanding that this is what we're going to get, this is how much we're going to be asked to pay for it. And people may grumble here and there, but nobody essentially takes to any forum to initiate a wholesale meltdown over price. The video games industry has been around for roughly about 40 years. It started with a bunch of techno geeks, reconfiguring their diagnostic equipment to create Pong. And then their companies said, hey, I think you're onto something here. Why don't you take some free time and, come up with something else? So that's how the first game consoles were born. Basically, people who, it wasn't their job to work on video games, but they kind of said, all right, well, let's see what we can do with it. And they did it, and that's how the games industry was born. But it wasn't until the 90s, so about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that the internet enabled us to enter into the current phase of video games. Prior to that, you bought a game, you were stuck with it. If there were bugs, you were screwed. Thanks to the internet, they could patch. Thanks to the internet, they could also deliver additional content. And that's when we started getting things like DLC. Now, you want to go through the scheme of things that we were being asked to pay for. Whereas it used to be just you buy the game and you're done. Now we've got cases where you can buy the game off the shelf. You could buy the game as a digital download. You get on-disc DLC that you have to unlock. You get day one DLC. You get DLC that you have to buy in pieces. You get season passes. You get buy the box, play for free. You get buy the box, pay a sub. You get download it for free, pay a sub. You get download it for free, play for free. You get download it for free, play for free with a cash shop. You get buy the box, pay a sub, cash shop. There are so many attempts by the games industry to monetize their product that it is clear to me that they are unable to project the value of their product in a way that the consumer base can agree. There is no standardization. There is no standardization of product, for one thing. You can have a game like Firewatch, which takes about 2 hours. You could take a game like Pillars of Eternity, which supposedly lasts over 100 hours. Those games are not equal, aside from the fact that they're two totally different genres, and they play in totally different ways. You could pay $20 for 2 hours of Firewatch, or you could pay $49.99 for 120 hours of Pillars of Eternity. How does that pricing work? I mean, you could easily say, well, the amount of time, the more time it takes to complete a game, the higher the price should be. That's one factor. One factor. And that's probably the yardstick against which gamers are used to, determining whether the price that they're being asked to pay for a game is fair. People will pay $60 for Call of Duty because they go in and they play multiplayer until the cows come home. So they feel easily that they can get their $60 worth. But you play a game that only has a campaign and they're being asked to pay $60, people might say, well, I don't know about that. But when it comes time for the industry to try and find ways to monetize their product, they've been taking the spaghetti approach. They've been throwing all of these business models up against the wall and finding out which ones stick. So we've got this huge pile of different monetization options. And the sum of all of these attempts is what really, in my mind, devalues the products. So when we talk about Firewatch devs, or Brigador, the developers of Brigador, I think it's like Space Jockeys or something like that. When they're the ones that took to the forums and broke down what you can get for $20. When those companies come to the consumers and say, look, this is what you're getting for $20. You know, you're allowing us to buy food for our families, to put roofs over our head. That's kind of a bad approach, because what it's doing, it's not trying to convince people of the value of the product. In my mind, it's almost like you're breaking down your product into a charity. You know, don't buy the product because it's a good product. Buy the product because you're helping us to feed our families. And that's to me, that's wrong. I understand why they did it. Absolutely. And I am certainly not deaf to, you know, paying a fair price for a product, to pay to support developers and ongoing content so that they can continue to work. I mean, I understand that. I am not against cash shops. I'm not against DLC. And I understand why those things exist. But when it comes down to it, having so many different pricing schemes across so many different games with no central method for pinning down, you know, a value of these games is there's when you cannot pin down a value, when you cannot put the price to value ratio, when you can't nail that down, it does not surprise me that we have situations where, you know, developers will complain about customers who say, yeah, I'm totally going to just wait for it to go on sale. You know, what the developers in that case here is, I do not think that this game is worth paying full price for. What the consumers are saying is, I'm trying to maximize the value for my money. Therefore, if, you know, no matter what the value is that the developer believes is in this product, I will be guaranteeing that I will be getting the most value I can for as low a price as I can. Okay? It's not malicious. It's not intended to take money out of the mouths of the developers. But it is a consumer reflex. This is what people have been doing for ages. When I was a kid, I remember going to the car dealership with my parents when they were buying a new car, and we would be there all freaking day because they would come in and they would say, we want this vehicle. And the dealer would say, well, it's going to be this much. And my parents would be like, I don't know. And they would say, how about this much? And then, of course, the dealer would say, I don't know. I got to go check with my manager. And then he would vanish for 10 minutes. We all know, of course, he was probably, you know, like getting a drink of water or going to the bathroom. But he'd come back and says, well, all right, how about this? And it would go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all freaking day. And the reason why, of course, is because, you know, cars had a rock bottom price that the dealer was able to sell it at. And they would jack that up in an attempt to get as much money as possible. Of course, the consumer doesn't want to pay that much. So they're going to try and, you know, whittle them down to a price that they're willing and able to pay. That is a consumer reflex. Certain products people are willing to pay a premium for, like iPads. Okay, that's not a surprise. But, you know, people's instinct is to try and get as much for as little as possible. And yeah, that can cause some, you know, disconsternation there because, of course, developers want to have, you know, the money that they feel is owed to them, either to get a return on investment, but certainly to, you know, live. And when they price their product at a certain level, that's the value that they themselves see in it. They know what went into it, and they know that if they price it at this, and if people buy it at this, they will be able to recoup their investment and also probably, turn a profit. And it hurts them, of course, here in the heart, to see people saying, well, I'm going to wait. But that's really because the games industry is so all over the place. And there is no standard. There is no, goal post for determining the value of these products. And so it does not surprise me that people are dissatisfied with pricing models. People get upset about, DLC. People get upset about cash shops. I think they go overboard in calling it greedy. But I think that, in some cases, companies trying to maximize the amount of money that they can pull in through a product is fine. But in that case, the games industry itself is devaluing the product. They're turning it into nothing but a cash cow. And I don't see how they can be surprised when consumers call them out on that and believe, that they're being gouged. So I don't know what an answer to this is, but I think that there really needs to be an examination. Companies need to stop trying business models just to see if they fly. It would be really nice if the industry had some kind of an organization where they could maybe standardize options for business models and things like that. I don't even know if that's possible or legal, but I think it would go a long way towards projecting a particular value of the products that the games industry produces, and it would go a long way towards kind of smoothing out consumer confidence so that people didn't think they were being gouged if people understood that there is value in the products that they're being asked to buy.